Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, and I'm joined by Nils Keller, writer and director of the live-action short film Almost Home. Nils, congratulations on your recent Student Academy Award for the film, and now it's been shortlisted for the actual Academy Awards. It's among 15 potential nominees. How are you taking that all in, and what has this experience been like for you?
Yeah, thanks, Denton. Thanks for having us. It's an amazing ride, already being nominated for the Student Academy Award and winning the Student Academy Award. It was like a great reward for the whole team because obviously it was a student project. We didn't have much money. We had high flying dreams. We hope that the story will come across, that we get all the technical aspects across. In the end, we wanted to tell a heartfelt story that I hope touches as many people as possible and feels relevant. And now this is the ultimate dream, to be shortlisted for the Oscars as well, and be able to show this film to so many people, to be seen by the amazing Academy members. It's a huge honor.
And it's a sci-fi film, but it resonates because there's a virus going around, and it's especially deadly to people with compromised immune systems. That sounds a little familiar to what we've been experiencing in recent years. And talk to us about the premise of the story. It's about a teenage boy and his mother in a spaceship returning to Earth. And can you describe where the idea came from for the script and how you got the project to take off?
Yeah, the very first idea came in April 2020 when I read a newspaper article, I guess in the New York Times, about a cruise ship where the people couldn't leave because of the pandemic. They were sailing the seas. People wanted to leave, but they couldn't. And the twist in the article was that a faction started to build there that said, maybe even if we were able to leave, we should stay here because the world outside just got so crazy. And I felt, okay, there's a story here about where's the line for us between safety and freedom, and where do we draw it? And it's very individual. And then next step, I wanted to get this idea or this question as far away as possible from COVID, while still using this kind of world-spanning thing that kind of connected us without exploiting it, to really talk about something that we all went through in some way. So the reason to make it a science fiction film was not initially that I wanted to do a science fiction film, but rather to find the right format for talking about these questions that are arising from a situation like being locked somewhere and having to decide if you're going outside or staying in a prison.
It's impressive because there's so many visual effects. We see them floating around the spaceship. There's communication with the boy's father, Tom, who's down on Earth. So that's all interesting to watch that go on. What sort of resources are you able to pull, and talents do you get for these to pull all these effects together in a short film?
Lucky enough, I had one student colleague of mine who is a director actually, and he specialized in visual effects. And in the beginning, I just was asking him to be the visual effects supervisor. But over the time, we noticed, okay, it's not so easy to get all these great visual effects artists on board. And he said, okay, I'm going to lock myself into a room for 1.5 years and do everything on my own. And it's pretty much what he did. Most of the effects were just coming from one person sitting in one room, talking to us via Zoom because there was still the pandemic going on. And then there were so many people helping, building the spaceship, constructing it, supporting it with all the technical equipment. Yeah.
So when they're floating around, are they on ropes floating around as you're filming, and then you sort of make that all disappear in post-production?
Yeah, they're like those 10 shots maybe, where we really did this zero gravity thing with the things they have beneath their suits, where you have to use the wires to move them through the air. But this we already just decided to do for the full body shots and for the shots where you really couldn't do it any other way. And for the rest of it, it's, I guess, 90% or 80% of the zero gravity scenes, we faked it. So the actors were training a lot before the shoot to do like these movements, wobbling around, pushing from walls, doing these things. And we on our side, together with the DOP, Georg Nikolaus, we developed a technique where we had this remote controlled camera rig where the camera was also floating and using their movements to extend them and to turn upside down your feeling for space in the room. And it really, like, after some time, we kind of had a good feeling for that. And then it was actually rather, we had to make sure that not everyone was going crazy, because it was so much fun just for 2 minutes float through the spaceship and move around and do another thing. And it looked very realistic in the end. Like the boy, there's one scene where we just used tiny slices of, because we didn't need more, but he was cleaning up his cabin, his room inside that spaceship. And I think that is a sequence of 2 minutes where you could almost use everything of it. And he is just taking his room apart, putting everything in a big suitcase, and he does it such in a great way, because he trained so much for it, that you really believe it's happening.
And what's the casting process then for a short film like this? Because you found great actors in Suzanne Wolf, Jeremias Meyer. Where did you find these two actors who, bring so much into the film?
Yeah, thanks. I think they're both amazing actors, and they're kind of like opposite in their careers right now, because Susanne is very well known in Germany. She comes from theater, worked rather in the art house direction with people like Volker Schlöndorff. And it was really my dream to work with her. And I early on had her in mind because she did this film called Stücks that won a German Film Award. And this is about a woman who sails the Atlantic Ocean alone, and until a refugee boat crashes her boat, and then conflict arises that it's very ambivalent. She has to decide what to do. She comes from a background where she's very caring for people, and all of a sudden she has to decide about life or death situations and so on. So I really felt like, coming from that role, she had all these aspects bringing to the table, where she's kind of that caring, loving person, but also a person that navigates the ocean alone, is very hands-on, very tough. And the boy, he was referred to us by an actress we are friends with, and she said, I've seen this guy in a theater class. He's amazing. I think this is going to be a great actor. You got to meet him, and so on and so on. And I casted him and did a lot of practices with him. And it was amazing working with him instantly. And you really had the sense that he wants to dig deep into that role. And whilst we were in pre-production and shooting, his career really started to take off. So he played in 2 Prime Video series right now, and people love him somehow. And I think he's great. It was great working with him. And he's so like this fresh mind where he really wants to explore these things, understand everything. He sent me a video of 20 takes where he tried the zero gravity thing. And next he tried this acting with the disability he's displaying in the film, where we also had help from doctors. So yeah, that was the casting process. Like, some were casted, the others were just like, I wrote love letters to convince them.
And then somewhere along the line, you get this Student Academy Award. And I think people would be interested in this, because this isn't something we hear about a lot. They don't get as much publicity. Of course, they don't look quite like Oscar. And so I'm curious, what has that process been for you to get a Student Academy Award, and then explain how that then qualifies you for the actual Academy Awards versus going into film festivals and things like that?
Yeah. So the Student Academy Awards, that's like, on the first hand, it's a different path. If you have a thesis film, you can take part in the competition. We're like 1,000 films this year. And then you have pretty much the same stages as you have in the best live action short or best documentary short Oscars, where you have the first round. Then it's they just have a semi-final of 15 films. Then it goes down to 5, and then there's the final. And coming from that background where we started making this film with the production League of Media and Jonas, who they trusted in the project to do it, and it felt impossible to do a space film. And we always promised to people, if we do everything right, it might be seen internationally, not knowing that it's internationally like the Oscars, but just that they're international people. But Jonas, the producer, and League of Media, they really believed in that film and convinced everybody to stay on board, put in all the effort, even though it was a student production. And then the first time we heard that we are going to the semifinals of the Student Academy Awards, to the finals, that won a Student Academy Award, that it wasn't not the bronze or silver medal, but the gold medal. It really felt like this amazing thing where you realize that people see this and believe the world and feel the characters. And what I like, I'm most happy about is that so many people are talking about the characters and the drama they're going through first, and then also asking how did you do it, but how was the zero gravity thing done? But really that we stayed true to this idea, even though it was a lot of production, that the story is at the core, and it's not about just showing the visual effects. And if we don't manage to do the story, who cares? But really to use all the surrounding and the suspension of disbelief for space to have a story where mother and the son are locked in at a place where you really can't run away, and you really have to decide what to do next, and where your life is really threatened in a way. So it's just amazing to see that there's such a great feedback by the Academy, by such amazing people who really know how to do a film, and we as students coming in and being honored by these people, it's just amazing.
Well, Nils, congratulations on the film and being shortlisted for Best Live Action Short category at the upcoming Oscars. It was a pleasure to speak to you today about your film, Almost Home.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, and with me now is Charlie Mackesy, the illustrator, writer, co-director, and creative mind behind The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, which is now streaming on Apple TV+. Charlie, the film's been shortlisted for Oscar consideration in the Best Animated Short category. So I just wanted to start off asking, how did that feel to be told you're among that prestigious group of animated films?
Well, it's a strange combination of feeling shocked, grateful, those two things, kind of moved and grateful and surprised, I think. I mean, you're in the room. This room is where I started the book, and you're seeing the more presentable side of it, but it's still a mess of drawings. And yeah, so to hear that from you, if I could have played this video to me 3 years ago in a room which is basically still the mess it was in, I would have been, overwhelmed, because I never dreamt we'd make a book, let alone a film. So yeah, Denton, it's an honor and a shock,
It's fascinating to see that behind the scenes look in the room. When you created this, who do you relate to the most? The boy, the mole, the fox, or the horse?
That's a good question. I think on different days I relate to each one more than the others, depending on what's happening in my life or how I feel about myself or existence. Usually I'm mole-like. I think I have already been in the fridge just before I turned on the Zoom to get some kind of comfort for. I always get nervous before going Zoom. So I am definitely the mole who medicates himself with snacks. Yeah, but I have a lot of questions still. So the boy still is very present in me. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah. Who do you relate to? Do you relate to any of them?
I mean, I would have to say recently it's been the mole because I feel like I'm constantly for cake. But hopefully I'm with you. I think, that's sort of what you're going for, correct? In this film is we're all a little bit of all of these characters and
right.
They could all really become one person. What was the message that you were trying to convey when you began the sketches of all of this?
I think for me, having always felt slightly alien to the human race and I always felt like I was a bit strange, and that my discovery is that we have so much more in common than we think, and so much of us is both beautiful and shareable, and the more you discover about yourself and how I guess it was just a journey of acceptance and love.
Yeah.
And if you accept yourself, you can accept others, and if you are accepted, you can learn to accept yourself. It's all that kind of. And shame was always a big one, and I think the boy's discovery that he's known and yet loved. That terrifying question he asked at the end. So all about me, and you still love me. That's that kind of really. So I think the journey was one of I was making myself amongst my friends, really. So I was doing these drawings and sending them to them, saying, "This is what do you think about this? Do you feel do you really feel like you're enough?" And the answer was always no, not really. So I did drawings all around those issues. I think that we all, are present in us, and the journey we make towards feeling better about those things. So it was. I never thought, when I was doing them, that we'd make a book. And it took a year and a half before I kind of, and there were. If you see this room. There are drawings there, but they're also under these coats. I've hidden them because I'm going away actually to LA, but there are literally boxes and boxes. This has got probably, I don't know, thousands of drawings. This room it's like a crazy room of process. And I think I was processing my own feelings. Do you feel less alone? Do you feel, that it's courageous to show weakness? Because these are the things I discovered and wanted to share with the world, really, or at least with my friends. I didn't think the world would ever read them,
but the book was so wildly successful. I mean, it really took off like no one expected. So when you were approached to turn it into a film, did you feel like a pressure to live up to that? Or were you just like, sure, let's go for it?
It's a really good question. I guess the pressure was not there because I'd never made a film before and I didn't know how it would be, but I did put pressure on myself, and I wanted in a way to be involved as possible, to try to keep the essence of the book in the film and to keep the messages as close to the film as we could. So I, in my own kind of mad way, wanted to inculcate into the whole journey the things that we've been talking about for a few years and the book was concerned with. So I suppose that was the pressure, was to try to keep us close to how people would write to me and tell me how the book made them feel. And I got, crazy numbers of emails. And I kind of felt, well, if we make a film, we should try to not copy the book, but at least go for the spirit of the book.
Yeah.
And to try to, if time is linear, that you begin watching the film in one place and when it's over, you feel differently in a good way, hopefully, about yourself or about the world or your friends, or you're more hopeful about things. So that was my real hope for the book, and equally hope for the film.
What did you enjoy the most about the filmmaking process and doing that for the first time and seeing your drawings become something else?
I'd always kind of wondered what they'd look like if they moved.
Yeah.
And would do really bad animations on my phone with I can't remember what it's called now, something flip. Anyway, you could do it with your finger, and I used to make these 10-second animations, try to see how the mole would move, and boy. But that was like the summary of I never dreamt that anybody would be that interested in making the film. And so to see after a few months' work the characters develop and not be radically different from the book, but then to see them come to life, that was a huge thing. I remember when I first saw the boy moving, and also to see his face, saw his face clearly when we developed his face. I just ran around the garden screaming because I felt that we still had kept him, that we hadn't lost him in the translation. You know, I was worried it'd be lost in translation, if you like. And then obviously it went from that to then having the actors and the voices, and that was a scary thing because I remember thinking, are they going to sound right? You know?
Yeah.
And I that was a big thing. And I remember hearing the voices with the animated characters, and just again, that was another real elation that that they felt and sounded the same as like they kind of felt like they would sound in the book. So, you know, Denton, there were lots of kind of eureka moments, and in amongst the real struggle, because it was a really tough journey for us to achieve. I think, you know, moving images that felt connected to the original work, and Peter Baynton, the co-director, everyone seemed to be so committed to it emotionally beyond the work itself, and that was a real privilege. And I think we all wanted to try to achieve the same thing. So we had big moments together. You know, it wasn't just like me. I think we were all on this journey together, and that was a great thing for me, because having made the book in relative isolation, one of the great things about making the film was that I was in this wonderful group of gifted, very gracious people who, you know, essentially allowed me in, because I'm not an animator. I'm not you know, this is just me with my instincts without any technical knowledge whatsoever. So I think they were truly wonderful in how they embraced me and listened to me and educated me on the process of filmmaking, which I was very ignorant about, you know.
I was curious about that. Like, did you feel like you had to give up some creative control because these are your characters, or did you enjoyed that? You enjoyed hearing other people's perspectives, or what was the most challenging part of all of this?
You know, firstly, I loved the process of democracy. I loved being wrong. I that sounds odd, but there's a real pleasure in me realizing that I'm wrong, and I enjoyed. There was never really any arguing. We just would posit our views in different ways and about things. And I loved the fact that all these heads were working together to achieve the same thing, but coming from very, very different places. So I enjoyed that. And the pressure was off me in isolation to do the right thing. It was endless Zoom calls, discussion, like 4 hours a day. Nearly 2 years. So I mean, sorry, what was your other question? You asked me like there was a second part to your question.
Just what the challenge was. So,
well, I think the challenges were many. You know, not least, I think getting the ink to move and not lose the fluidity of the ink. And I use a very, like, I've got a drawing here, for instance. I just did it just now. That's going to give me but can you see these loose lines around?
Oh yeah.
How we wanted to try to keep those energy lines in the animation, if you like, and not just have it the lines too sealed, too simple, and yet create something that everybody could work with, rather than just me. I mean, I do random drawings. That's fine if you're on your own, but when you come to animate that's extremely hard.
So, Charlie, congratulations on the film being shortlisted for the upcoming Oscars, and we certainly wish you the best of luck. And everyone watching this interview can watch The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse on Apple TV+. Charlie, thanks for joining.
Well, thank you.
The panel.
It's lovely to meet you.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Doug Blush, executive producer of the documentary The Elephant Whisperers on Netflix. Doug, I want to first congratulate you on being shortlisted for the upcoming Academy Awards. You're among just 15 potential nominees for Best Documentary Short. What was it like to receive that news, and what has this reception been like for you and director Kartiki Gonzalez?
Oh, well, the short list is this amazing validation, especially for Kartiki, who's been such a force of nature. She's been working on this film for 5 years in a really remote, wild area of southern India. And it just proves that this story, this kind of timeless story that we were all trying to tell, really is resonating. And it's the greatest feeling when you get that word that other people appreciate it too. It's just terrific.
So the documentary, it's about this couple in South India, and they care for elephants. And this is a particular story about their relationship with Raghu and a human-elephant bond. It's beautiful to see this movie. How did Kartiki and the filmmakers initially hear about this elephant camp, and then what inspired them to go actually make a film about it?
Well, Kartiki lives in the region where this preserve is, and this is one of those unique parts of the world where they have a really well-preserved area of incredible nature. I mean, there are literally every kind of animal you can imagine wandering around in this preserve. And Kartiki had known about the elephant reserve and the tiger reserve that are up there. So she was very familiar with it. And then she got word through friends that there was a couple that had been working with first adult elephants, but then at the time, it was mainly Bowman working with adult elephants, and that they were now rescuing this baby named Raghu. And the survival rate was so unlikely for baby elephants, orphaned elephants. The chances were almost zero that this baby elephant would survive and grow and thrive. But Bowman and Belly's work to bring this baby forward and to care for it like a true child saved this elephant's life, and it becomes a family drama, basically. Yeah.
What's happening in general that has caused a need for camps like this to exist in India?
Well, obviously, all of these incredible species in this park are endangered, or they're certainly threatened and pressured by human expansion, climate change, reduction of roaming lands. And what's special about this preserve is they take that very seriously to keep it as wild and natural as possible. And it gives the elephants the range they need to survive and to actually continue to hopefully thrive. I mean, Indian elephants are doing better in many ways than African elephant populations, and that's partially because of the conservation efforts that the Indian government and then this preserve has taken such care. Of course, elephants are revered in India, and it's sort of part of the cultural fabric of India to make sure that elephants are a part of life. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually see a ceremony where they paint the elephant and then take it in to receive its blessings, and it's almost like this parade. It does feel like a very spiritual experience,
Very much. Yeah, it's integrated into daily life. It's certainly not a tourist thing. It's a very, very solemn religious ceremony, and this is literally talking to God for the people of this preserve. Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how much it reflects like a parent-child relationship. They're playing in the river together. I mean, these elephants are showing all the same emotions of sadness, happiness. They can be mischievous. What surprised you the most, or what do you feel like you learned from watching this experience unfold?
Well, I think you hit on it. It's a family story. It's actually the story of kids growing up, and in one case, leaving home. And what's that like? What's that emotionally like? And it's the kind of thing that everybody goes through who's ever had, pets that pass on, or kids that grow up and head off to college or go wherever they go. And this was that kind of fable, that you've got a family where you've got 2 kids, ultimately. I'm not spoiling too much, but the parents have all the usual problems you have with kids growing up. And then it comes time to say goodbye, And so when you see the film, there's a lot of those emotional highs and lows. There's that bond and that love, despite all the hard work and the tough times. And I loved it just because I think it's a universal story for any parent and any child. It's very recognizable.
And it's easy to fall in love with the elephants. Those are magical to watch. But the film also makes you fall in love with Boman and Bali. These are the people that live in the forest, and they've had difficult lives. Bali's husband was killed by a tiger. She lost a daughter, and she talks about how these elephants have become her children and even wipe her tears away with their trunks when she's sad. What's the biggest lesson from them that we can take away from what those two are showing about how to live life in their part of the world?
Well, that's one of my hopes, is that instead of it being a science film with a lot of experts, it's really about the bond between man and nature and humans and animals. And one of the things I think in the film that resonates is that Belly tells her young granddaughter the story of the blind man and the elephant, which is to understand what the true nature of an elephant is. A lot of people in India and elsewhere think that elephants are, rampaging and destroying crops and doing damage. And of course, there's poaching and all these other things. And her story brings home the fact that once you live with an elephant, you truly understand that elephant's soul, and the bond is unbreakable after that. And that's what the film kind of goes into, is this couple and the other people who work with them. For them, elephants are life. It's absolutely a crucial bond. And I just love that, because it just makes you feel the closeness with whatever animal or human relationship you have. And I think that's what's so universal about it. I loved working on this film. It was sort of like a healing thing as the pandemic was fading. And most of this film was done remotely and at a distance because of all the pandemic shutdowns. But this kept us going. We used that as kind of an inspiration and a booster to remind ourselves of the importance of the larger world, and that humans aren't everything. There's so much more out there.
How receptive were they to having a film crew around them, and what was that like for them?
This is a great credit to Kartiki and her ability to be, first of all, be within the culture. She speaks the dialect, and she got their trust by just going and being there and just watching and not invading their space, and just sort of filming what happened day to day. Including sometimes when there was no crew available, she'd take her iPhone. If there was a moment where something special was happening, she would just shoot whatever was there. And other times when she was there with a full crew, they were very careful not to affect what was going on. They just observed. And I think that Bowman and Belly really appreciated that Kartiki respected their space. That she respected the culture, the religion and the ceremonies, and she was just there to watch. And ultimately, she brought back this incredibly beautiful film. When I saw the footage, I said, oh my gosh, there's nothing like this out there. It's incredible.
Yeah, the cinematography is beautiful, and the landscape is just something that not a lot of people are going to be able to see other than watching something like this. Can you talk about how the film was shot, and how did we get some of those longer shots that, clearly took more work than one person with a camera? There was some professionalism going into that I would love to hear more about.
Well, Kartiki, to her great credit, she did shoot a lot of this film herself, and she has a fantastic photographic eye. During the filming, she would send me photos from other parts of India, and even from her front lawn, there was I forget if it was a jaguar or whatever the animal was that was crossing her front yard. She would send me pictures of these animals roaming around on her like a driveway. So she lives in the environment. She understands the environment, and I think for a cinematographer, you need to kind of feel that place and to learn it. And she knew it so well. So she and her team, we had some great cinematographers. We had a great drone operator, obviously, who brought the majesty of the vistas of the place. But really, it came down to the intimacy. I give so much credit to Kartiki and her DP for just being intimate with Bowman and Belly and the elephants. It feels like the camera's not there, and that's the hardest challenge in documentary, is to just melt into the background, don't affect what's going on, observe, and then we build the story, with all the beautiful things that she gave us. Yeah.
And then beginning to end of the process, how long did this all take for Kartiki to put this together?
Well, we're at 5 years and counting, including all of this amazing time here. And that's how much tenacity she had. She always believed in this project. And that's why I jumped on, because I get a lot of offers for different films. And when I saw this, I said, this is magic. There's something beyond just a nature film or anything like that. This is a magical, timeless story. And I just had to be a part of it. So I ended up being on the film for about 2 years of that 5 years, 2.5 almost. And I'm very proud of Kartiki for staying the course. It's so easy in documentary to just throw your hands up and say, oh, this is so much work, I can't do it anymore. And she never wavered. She just kept going.
Well, Doug, congratulations on the film and being shortlisted for Best Documentary Short at the upcoming Oscars. The Elephant Whisperers is available to watch right now on Netflix, so everyone can go check it out. Doug, it was a pleasure to speak with you, and best of luck.
Thanks, Denton. Appreciate it.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Sharon Liese, director of the documentary short film The Flagmakers. And Sharon, first of all, congratulations on making the shortlist for Oscar consideration. You're among 15 potential nominees for Best Documentary Short. How does that feel, and what has that experience been like for you?
It is humbling. I feel honored, and I'm also terrified. So this is very new territory for me. My co-director, Cynthia Wade, has been here before, but I have not. So it's a whole new world, but it's great.
What's terrifying? Why that emotion?
Oh, because it's like, what do we do? What is expected right now? Like, what do I say? How do I answer these questions? What does it mean for my career? There seems to be a lot at stake with it, and I just want to keep it calm. So.
Well, the film is about Eater Flag in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, where employees sew and ship out 5 million American flags a year. And what's so fascinating about this is right in Wisconsin, in the middle of America, is these employees are this incredible, diverse group of locals, immigrants, refugees from all over the world. How did you hear about Eater Flag? And then how did you decide to ultimately make this documentary?
Yeah, it's a magical place, and it's a place that's just so unexpected in terms of Oak Creek, and then to see this bubble of America right inside that factory. It actually the film started out as a different film in Kansas City, where I live. And Cynthia and I had been talking about how we wanted to do something with immigrants because there was so much negative, negative rhetoric about immigrants, and we wanted to see what we could do about influencing that sentiment. So there was a program in Kansas City that had teaching women to sew, and they were mostly immigrants and refugees. And at the end of that program, we were filming it. The end of a 6-week program, these women got jobs at an American flag factory, and it was in Kansas City. And we were like, "This is the story. We need to pivot." And we were not able to get access to that factory, so we started a nationwide search, and we found this place in Oak Creek, Eater Flag, that once you walk in, it is so beautiful and so cinematic, and all the different sounds and smells just converging. We were just charmed by it immediately. And we knew that having been there, that once we walked out, we would never look at the American flag the same way again.
First of all, I was shocked at the actual flag making process. I would have never imagined how much actual hand sewing. I mean, these people are in stations sewing in stars. What surprised you the most about just the first time you just walked into a flag making factory?
The magnitude of it, these large flags, and the fabric, and how many hands were actually touching each flag, because each flag is not just made by one person. Some people might do the stripes and some people do the stars, but they all have to work together. And the fact that they don't all speak the same language, and there might be 12 to 15 different languages going on, but they manage to cooperate and put these enormous flags and smaller flags together.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you talk to various subjects of people who work there. And one is Sugar Ray. He's a Black man that works in the shipping department. And he has a quote that I love from the movie. He says, "You get the temperature of the country by what flags are displayed." And that's true, especially today, whether it's a Black Lives Matter flag or a Pride flag or American Confederate flags. There's so much meaning behind what people are putting outside of their homes or places of business. And he gets emotional because he works in this factory, but he won't put an American flag in his own front yard because he feels like his country doesn't love him back, even though he loves his country. So he gets very emotional. How did you get so many people to become so vulnerable and open up to you with their stories on camera? Because he's just one of many incredible stories in this project.
Yeah, I mean, Sugar Ray is amazing, and he made himself very vulnerable. I mean, as documentary filmmakers, this is the thing that we always want to do. We want to gain trust with our and have a relationship with our subjects so that they can go deep inside and tell us their most intimate thoughts. And Sugar Ray, we spent some time with him and talking to him and getting to know him and letting him know that, we will only film what you want us to film and what you will allow us to film. And you have to be willing to stand by those commitments. And Sugar Ray said he would talk. And, there was a lot going on in the country right there, also in Wisconsin, when we did that interview. And so he just bared his soul, and we were so grateful that he would speak to us and tell us, his most intimate thoughts.
You have footage and captured footage of these flag makers watching the January 6th insurrection where the flags are weaponized. That's powerful footage to watch, for them to see flags that they made be turned into weapons like that. How were you there to capture that in that moment?
Well, what's interesting too was that was a time where we also were taking all kinds of COVID precautions, and we had to shoot that through the window when Sugar Ray and his kids were watching the television that day. And so we were just filming different things with him, and we said, "Is this okay?" And he said, "It's fine." And he really, and we've talked to him throughout this whole process of screening, and he feels like it's very important for the country to see through his eyes what he's watching. So we're again always grateful to subjects who will allow you into their lives in that way.
And Wisconsin's a very politically diverse state. And, someone else that you speak to is Barb, and she's been there for a while. She might be considered, more conservative on many things. She's a little frustrated that people aren't speaking English. Despite all of that, they throw her this big retirement party, and she's hugging all of these people from different countries that, even though she has issues with, there's a love and a bond that they have there working all together. This factory is like a microcosm of America, and it's sort of showing, what we should be. What do you hope that people get out of seeing things like Barb and the relationship that she has with these other people that she does not necessarily see eye to eye with on all subjects?
Yeah, I mean, Barb's beliefs belie the relationships that she forms at Eat Her Flag, and we felt that it was really important to have a character like that in the film, because it's really easy to dismiss other people who think differently than we think and hold beliefs that are different than ours. But there's a sense of humanity that you see in these people who think very differently and believe differently and get along and connect. And we think that that's an important message, that you need to get through some of that clutter to be able to see the humanity and to see what people are really about. I mean, if we're going to fix any of these things that we need to fix in the country, we need to start with seeing people as people, and people with hearts, and people who care. And it's confusing and it's complicated, and we want to see people as one-dimensional, but it's just not that way.
What is it about Eat Her Flag that attracts such a diverse workforce?
Well, for one thing, Eater is very proactive in seeking a diverse workforce, so that makes that happen. Also, it feels like it's when you're there, it's a very welcoming and an open and accepting environment. And it really feels like when you walk into those doors, you are walking into a bubble and you are looking at what the country could be. And that if people could just see each other as people that want to know each other and connect with each other and help each other, that maybe it could be a little better place.
How long was this process from beginning to end? And how do you know when it's time to make that final cut and say, all right, let's stop this?
Yeah. So it was, we filmed for 3 years. We had not expected to film for 3 years. But there was a little, pandemic that got in the way, but it allowed us, to stretch out the process so that we were able to get things that were very important that were happening in the country that we were able to put into the film. I don't think there's never a point that you think a film is over. You just run out of time or money. So in this instance, we did have we had deadlines that we needed to make. Though I will say that Nat Geo was great and they kept letting us, take this further and further. And we had actually finished the film, thought we had finished the film, which we edited for over a year with 3 different editors. We'd finished the film and then learned that Radica was going back to Serbia and decided to reopen it because that was our ending. It was telling us that this is our ending.
And she was the manager of the plan.
And she was the one who was guiding us through and who had been there for 30 years and came to America following trying to find the American dream and then decides to leave.
Well, it's a powerful message in film, and everyone can watch it right now. It's streaming on Hulu and Disney Plus. Sharon, congratulations on the film and best of luck. It was a pleasure to speak with you about the Flagmakers.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Gold Derby's Film Shorts panel. I'm Senior Editor Denton Davidson, and I'm joined by an impressive lineup of directors and producers representing live action, animated, and documentary shorts. Each of your films has been shortlisted for the upcoming Oscars. With me are Nils Keller for Almost Home, Peter Baynton for The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, Doug Blush for The Elephant Whisperers, and Sharon Liese for The Flagmakers. Round of applause for everyone who made the Oscar shortlist, and thanks so much for joining this panel today. Each of your films is so unique, but they're all shorts. And I just want to start by asking, what do you enjoy the most about the art of short filmmaking? And how did you decide that the film you made in particular that we're discussing would be a short film versus feature length, if you had that choice? Nils, I'll start with you.
Yeah, like coming from a student background where it's maybe more common to just do shorts because you don't have the money or you don't get to choose or it's more normal. It was maybe more natural to do a short, and obviously because it was a sci-fi film, it had to be a short. But what I really love about shorts, also watching shorts, it's that this is the very unique format where you don't have to follow like the hero's journey or anything, but you really can just think about the thing you want to tell and have like a slice of life. And you can approach it from different angles and can be very free if you want to. So I think that's a great thing about shorts.
Peter, how about for you with, an animated short film, and how do you know that this film is going to be right for, this amount of time?
Well, with our film, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, it was always conceived of as a short film, something of a sort of a TV special length type thing. So that wasn't a decision that I had to make, certainly. But I think that in that particular case, do you know what? It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think it perfectly well could become a feature length kind of story, but it would take sort of a development, and I think it would require going somewhere else. And I think the short film format just more instinctively and naturally sort of fits with the original work, the book, I guess.
Doug, what do you like about the short filmmaking process, and how did you decide? Because I mean, we've mentioned that Kartiki, the director of your film, was there for years. So how do you then pare that down into, 40 minutes or so?
Right. It's a huge question for us documentary filmmakers, because we tend to have enough footage, even with a short, to make a feature, because our ratios, and I'm sure Sharon has the same story, your ratio of shooting is massive. I mean, the amount of footage, you might have 300 hours. We had 300 hours on Elephant Whispers, and of that, you could easily construct, a physical length of a feature. But I got to say, I love shorts. I love shorts. I try to see as many shorts as I can when I'm at film festivals. I go to shorts compendiums and shorts programs. And I love them because they're, by form, they have to tell a story really coherently. They have to really get down to what the story's about. And a great short feels like, it's kind of like reading a great short story. It's just a punch, and then you've really felt something. And I think for all the shorts that are making their way through the documentary ranks this year, they all tell a great focused story. And you don't need a feature length. You don't need that longer length. Sometimes that can really help the message of the film too, because let's face it, a lot of people don't have the time or the suitability to get a great message in 2 hours or even an hour and 30 minutes. But if you give them a 15 or a 20 or a 30-minute short or a 40-minute short, 40 is the limit. 40 is like, it's got to be shorter than 40 if you're going to be playing in the Oscar zone. But that limits you in a really good way. It keeps you from overtelling your story. It makes you focus on what's important in your story. And I almost think sometimes if you've got a great story, it focuses it and makes it more intense an experience. So I love the format. It's a great challenge as an editor and as a producer to try to really get your story honed down. So yeah, kudos to shorts. I'm a big fan of shorts.
And Sharon, how about you?
Well, Cynthia's done shorts before, and I've done shorts, and we really do like the challenge of that format. So we always conceived of it as a short, though, like Doug was saying, we had so much footage, we could have done a feature, and we thought about it at times. But we just said, no, we're going to stay committed to the short. And in our case in particular, which was what was challenging, was that we knew that we wanted to include more than one character, because generally, it's in a short, it's if you're only following one character, it may be a little less confusing and a little easier to manage. But since we were telling the story about Americans, we knew that we couldn't tell the story of one American, so we needed it to be diverse. So that was a particular challenge in this short for us.
And I think another major challenge for short films has always been exposure and who's going to see them. And I'm curious to know from each of you, how do you think things have evolved over the years and in favor of short films? Three of you are, on major streaming platforms right now. And I think that plays a big hand in how exposed your films are. Peter, maybe I'll start with you and what your partnership with Apple TV Plus has done for your film.
Well, I mean, it's a huge, I feel hugely fortunate, and it's a great honor to be partnered with Apple TV Plus. I mean, it's in a nutshell means that, immediately our film has the potential to be viewed by anybody in, more or less the whole wide world. So it's it's as simple as that, really. It's a dream. It's a dream come true to be partnered up with someone who can just do that and reach everyone. And I guess that's always the hope with one's film, is that one might reach anyone in the everyone in the world. So it's a great privilege.
And Sharon, for a Nat Geo film, you have access then to Disney Plus and Hulu. So what has that been like compared to other experiences you've had in the past?
Yeah, I feel like it's just amazing because there's so much of a greater appetite for shorts now that the streamers have been putting them out there. And, it's not just something that you go and see at a film festival. It's something that you can go see. And then when you tell someone you can watch this, it's only 35 minutes, or if it's a 12-minute, you can just go see this. I feel like that's really helped to get people to the exposure. And I know I had a film once of 4 years ago that was on CNN. Great big story. And in the first year, it got 16 million views. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. It would have been lost in some, film festival years ago.
Right. And Doug, how about you with Netflix?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy to work with Netflix again. We've had a very successful run with a previous short that I worked with them on. And the great thing about this film being a short and having this window with Netflix globally is that I've always hoped that this story would be something that a whole family could sit down and share together. And that it's like the greatest bedtime story. And bedtime stories, you can't do a bedtime story for an hour and a half, but you can do one in like 30, 40 minutes. You can keep a kid's attention, you can keep a family together and have them experience this family story. And what's beautiful is we're getting responses like that. I love that we're getting emails and texts and things from people around the world now who are sharing it with their kids. They're sharing it with their elders, and they all sit together and they watch a movie that moves them all. I mean, that to me is the greatest honor as a filmmaker, is that you can bring people together like that. Kartiki she just texted me a little while ago, a drawing by a 4-year-old of I think a friend in India, and now the 4-year-old is obsessively drawing elephants. I'm just so happy about that. That's what you live for as a filmmaker. So yeah, we love, and Netflix has understood that. They put it out in a really great way. So it's been a great team effort. I think we've had nothing but great feelings together.
And Nils, even for you, live action films can be a little different, especially non-English. And I'm curious, what tools are you able to use? Because even now we're in a different age where you're on Instagram. I mean, there's so much self-promoting that someone can do. What tools are to your benefit that wouldn't have been there for you 15 years ago?
It's definitely, I'd say, connecting with all the people through the internet, through like having these Zoom conversations, and being able probably to just send the link around of the film, because they're like, people can decide if they have the time to watch it like film, and also rewatch it or watch a certain scene or do anything like that. I just know the stories from 30, 40 years ago where people really had their short film and had those film rolls they were walking around with from festival to festival, and were hoping that the people who might help them do the next film were present and they could talk to them about that. But it was really the only chance, if it was not shown in TV, to show a short film. And I really, myself, I'm watching all these short films that are now available and appreciate, like, we don't have that yet. We don't have the film on a platform yet, but it's like, coming back to your main question, it's great to have these other films that normally wouldn't make it to the cinema, where you just buy the ticket for the cinema, but just to film festivals, available somewhere else, where really someone can tell you, okay, there's a great film out there about this specific thing, and it dives into that topic, and it's very short because it doesn't have to be longer, and to see that. So I think in general, it's great that there's so much more diversity nowadays, like regarding the topics, but also the lengths of the films. That's great. And for us, there's definitely a similar thing for self-promoting, about these chances to get people, to get to know people through the internet, through Instagram, to show around the links. Yeah. So I think that's great. And we already are talking to people we would have never gone in touch to, because they wouldn't have the time to just meet us live and start a conversation about what's next, because there are definitely projects we want to do next, and we want to connect to the whole world, because filmmaking is a team effort, and it's great to connect to as many people and passionate people as possible.
What are some behind the scenes stories or scenes that you may have had to cut to make sure you got your timeline, or just funny stories about the process? I'll start with you, Peter. What did you and Charlie talk about, and what fun stories do you have about working on that film together?
I was just listening to Doug and Sharon with envy, the idea of having feature length worth of footage to cut down to a short film. And obviously with animation, that's not an option. It's you have it's such laborious work, and you can't afford to animate. Generally, you can't afford to animate stuff that you're not going to include in the film. So it's obviously, so you have to plan the thing to a hair's breadth in storyboard and animatic. Also, that once it goes into animation production, there's no wastage, or there's little wastage as possible. Few handles of a few frames on either side of any given shot. So it's I guess a different kettle of fish. And also there were two or three. There's one moment. Early on there was a kind of a fun moment with when the mole actually meets some actual cake quite early in the film, and obviously, and in the end, do I give a spoiler? Well, I don't know. Does it? In the end, something else happens. So there were little ideas that come and go, and would have changed the flavor of things, I guess. But through these sort of wonderful discussions we all had, things fell by the wayside. It was changed shape, and we ended up with the thing we ended up with, I guess.
Sharon, how about for you? Was there anything that was painful to cut?
Oh, so much. We had like full characters and character arcs that we had to cut. There was a guy, Malenko, who was from Serbia and a prisoner of war. And he had this horrific story about being tortured and coming here. And he was known at the factory as the Candy Man, because every weekend he would go and buy candy at this candy store, and we followed him and we shot it. And then he would sort the candy into with the sections of the flag factory that he would think would want those candies, and then he would walk through in the morning and go to everybody's desk and then give them candy every single day. And so his story, he had such a sweet story. We followed a woman from Mexico who's all her 3 kids went into the military, and one showed up and surprised her one day, coming in from San Diego, and she wanted to become a citizen for them. And so there were so many stories. And Sugar Ray, we could never fit this in, but he talked about, which I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised, but he wanted, if he was going to fly a flag, it would be the Bucks flag at his house. And he would get a huge Bucks flag and fly it at his house, but that would be the only flag. And it was funny the way he told it. And we just didn't have the tonal space to put that in anywhere. So yeah, those things kind of kill you.
And Doc, how about you? As an editor as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, and Sharon obviously has been through this too. What you see on screen is about 2% of what you went out and got. And that's, in a way, that's good though, because that short format, going back to that, it forces you to make really hard choices. And those choices will make your film stronger, because there are great scenes, and on their own, as a scene, you'd watch it and go, oh, that's fantastic. But then when you play it in the film, does it contribute to the feel of the entire film? With Elephant Whisperers, we had interviews with experts and zoologists and climate people, and it's like, that's not the film we're making. We're making a family story about these 2 amazing people and these beautiful baby elephants. And when you focus in, when you tell a pure story like that, that's how you get the purity of a short, and what I love, what Sharon was talking about, is these scenes, you fall in love with them, and they're in the film, and the film is 2 hours long, and you say, no, we're not making a feature. We're going to pull it back, and it's going to be stronger because of that. And I mean, I obviously Flagmakers is great, and Elephant Whispers, we went through that again and again, and we had to really pick what tells our story. It's a unique thing to documentary, because I know for Peter, you don't animate 90 extra hours of stuff. That's not on the table. But you have to pick in the storyboarding process, right? And you have to really be careful to put only the things that'll tell your story really well. Same thing with a short. I mean, Nils, your film, I'm sure you had to make some choices in the script about like that. We don't need that detail, that line of dialogue. You don't need that. We go through the same thing, but we don't know what our script is until we get in the edit room. So the editing process is so painful and powerful for us. Yeah, it's great though. It ends up making really strong films.
Mhm.
And Nils, we'll close out with you.
Yeah, funny enough, I kind of had a moment like in the very end of the post-production, like Doug explained, or Sharon, that was kind of documentary like, because even though it's a live action short film, we post-produced the whole thing to 37 minutes, and the film that's now out there is 30 minutes. And I'm so happy that the whole team didn't just kill me, because it was such a big team effort. They, like, almost no one was paid. They had so much over hours. They were working, doing the set design. The visual effects person did so many visual effects there. And then when it all came together, because we never made a science fiction film before, and there was so much technical stuff in there, we didn't have like a team in the back that could pre-visualize everything. We kind of found some tricks to find out what it could feel like if the Earth is there, but we didn't quite know. And the full animations of the spaceship landing, we didn't exactly know what it looks like. And then when everything was finished, including the music, including the mixing, we saw, or I had the feeling, okay, it is great and it's poetic, but as Doug said, to come back to this core, that this is a story about a boy and his mother, and about family conflict, and that are these moments where the story turns around and there's desperation and hope. It really felt like I have to shorten down the breaks in between and some scenes to have this impact and come back to the story, and not kind of exploit what we made there, and to please probably some fans of very slow films, but to get back the energy of the actual story and stay true to the idea that we don't do that to impress people by visual effects, but have this energy there, and throw everything out that hasn't got to be there to tell this story about a boy who loses hope about his future. So yeah, there was a lot of editing in the end after everything seemed to have been done.
Well, congratulations to all of you. Everyone can check out Almost Home from Nils Keller. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse is on Apple TV+. The Elephant Whisperers is on Netflix, and The Flagmakers is on Hulu and Disney+. Best of luck to each of you at the upcoming Oscar nominations. We hope we'll see all of you at that red carpet. And thanks for joining Gold Derby's Film Shorts panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.